What's up, guys? It's McNulty here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to Soul Exchange for March 2024. It is the Super Bowl Sunday of Soul Exchanges, and it's kind of appropriate that it is on a Sunday morning because this is hands down, as I've said before, the best Soul Exchange that we've ever seen in Empires and Puzzles. So I am pretty excited about the picks that we've got. And today we're going to help me make up my mind on which hero that I'm going to pick. I've got a pretty good idea already, but I just want to break down these heroes, see which of them are really, really worth it. And full disclosure, just before we get started, I feel like the heroes are in these tiers in Soul Exchange for a reason. So we do know that SG measures how heroes perform from the weekly scrolls of aggregation. You know, that annoying notification email that you get every week with no gifts attached. But the most sought after heroes in the game basically align with the most competitive content, which is, in my opinion, in order: Alliance Wars, events, tournaments, towers, Mythic Titans, Hero League, and Monster Island, obviously, if they keep going with that. But that being said, there are some incredible heroes in this Soul Exchange, so it's very difficult to pick. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive into these heroes today. So let's start off with the row of 10 souls. So starting off on the left-hand side, we have got Uthragan. Now, Uthragan is our October 2023 Hero of the Month. He is a pretty decent hero, I would say. He can be used in a pinch as a tank, and I know he's getting a lot of flack for being in this Soul Exchange and people saying he's not worth it at 10 souls. But I would say that if you are in desperate need and you don't have a really sort of tanky type of hero and you can only afford 10 souls, then maybe, just maybe, he might be an okay pick. He does have an innate resistance against poison, and he does have an innate resistance against status elements that stop mana generation. So this is not the same as a innate resistance against heroes that stop the use of special skills. It's only against ailments that prevent mana generation. So it is a little bit more niche. He does get a good ether talent, so the defense up is a pretty decent ether talent for him, I would say. And in terms of his special, he does have 150% damage to the target, but that's not really what this guy's all about. He's all about damage over time. So the target and the nearby enemies receive 753 poison damage over 3 turns, which at the sort of lower to mid tier levels can be quite useful, but the poison damage he does is absorbed as health, which is why I say that he can be a pretty usable tank. But then, to be honest, from this first row of 10 souls, he is probably the least likely hero that I would recommend. Okay, now moving on to Odin. Odin is, he's a really good hero because he deals damage to all enemies at fast speed. He deals additional damage per holy shield that's on the board, and the damage can get up to 290%. But you have to have a load of holy tiles on the board for that to be effective. So Odin, I'm going to say, has been dated, and unfortunately you can really see it from what he's doing now compared to what some of the other newer heroes can do. Yeah, I just don't know. He gives a mana generation increase, which is kind of useful as well. But I wouldn't pick Odin unless you really are struggling in terms of getting your heroes to fire off as quickly as possible. There was a day when Odin and Frigg paired together, made a really, really good team. Maybe still, again, at the lower levels, if you haven't been playing for that long and you've only got 10 souls. But again, I feel like there are better heroes in this 10 soul pick for this Soul Exchange. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about Odin. He's got a pretty good class as well with the revive, but he's just not hitting hard enough, unfortunately. Now, Yangmai next to him. So let's look at Yangmai quickly. She's running at fast speed. She's going to deal 310% damage to the target, 60% chance for additional hits on random enemies. Not a huge fan of the randomness, unfortunately. She does have a pretty good passive resistance against water damage, and 30% attack for 3 turns when the mana is reduced. But again, they're quite niche effects, and she is a hero of the month. So you're going to find with the heroes of the month, the passives really don't shine too much. I do like the art on the card, if that matters for anything. But otherwise, I would say I'd probably put her at the bottom of the picks on the first row so far. Sorry, Yangmai. I love the art, but I don't love you as a hero. The next hero next to her is going to be Snow White. So Snow White, she is a pretty good hero. I would say probably my top pick from this first row. She just dispels and cleanses all buffs from all status ailments from all allies and enemies. It doesn't really matter too much that she's running at slow speed because it just gives those buffs and ailments time to sort of get, stuck on there before she does her thing and wipes the board clean. So the same kind of effect as somebody like Annabelle, except that instead of healing, she's dealing damage to all enemies. And it's a lot of damage. So it's 140% damage, an additional 30% damage per removed status effect, and that can get all the way up to 500% damage in total. And she is featured with the costume, which does make her stats a lot better, like a lot better. So I really do like this hero. I think that she's doing everything in the right order. And I think that even though she's running at slow speed, she's still a viable option from the Soul Exchange. So I wouldn't sleep on Snow White. I think she's a really good hero. She's probably going to be my top pick from the bottom row. Next to her, we have Francine. She is featured with her costume as well. The nice thing about Francine, well, there's a couple of nice things about Francine. One is that she's running at fast speed. The second is that she hits 3, so the target nearby. She does deal a little bit too little damage, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. I really do appreciate that she's hitting 3 heroes, but I just wish that her damage was a little harder. I have got Francine maxed. There are a couple of good things, like I said. The family bonus, she gets an increase on her mana generation. So if you do have other heroes from the Molovia family, she does pair pretty well with them because she can increase the mana generation up to 9%. Depending on how many you have. And then the second bit where she cleanses ailments from all allies at the end of each turn for 3 turns, it can come in useful, plus that effect can't be dispelled. So it can be really frustrating if you put her on a defensive team where you're trying to chop them down with ailments, and then Francine fires off and then she just keeps cleansing every single turn. Granted, they do take the first turn worth of damage, but then it cleanses afterwards, and that effect keeps going for the following 3 turns. And then she does have a little sneaky, I say a little one, it's 54% elemental defense down against ice enemies, so against nature. So it's a pretty good hero for being able to use her against titans. She does have that niche usability, which means that she can be not only used as an attacker and pretty good on defense, but against titans as well. So she's quite versatile, but don't get me wrong, she's not going to wipe a whole team. That's the problem. And she's not going to do a huge amount of damage. So you really use her more as a support hero than you do as an upfront damage dealer. And there was a time when she was excellent, but that time has come and gone, unfortunately. So from the first row, I'm going to say I would put Snow White in a solid first place. Francine would be a pretty close second, and then followed by, I'm going to go ahead and say maybe Odin and Uthragan in the same sort of tier in third place, and then Yangmai, unfortunately, she just doesn't make the cut. Right, I don't want to choose a hero just yet, so why did I do that? So we'll move on to the second row. All right, so these heroes are featured at 15 souls, and this is where things start to get interesting. Now, I do have a pretty good idea in this row as to where I think these heroes sit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll start with who I think is probably the one I would least recommend picking, and then we'll move on, 5th, 4th, 3rd, etc. So we'll start off with Dr. Maro. I can't believe I'm saying this, for a season 4 costume, that I would say that this guy is the one that I would least recommend. But That's basically where he's sitting at the moment. So the cool thing about us having a season 4 costume featured is that we do have the passives. So these extra passives make all the difference. So he gets the special skill damage reduction, where received damage from special skills is reduced by 20%. For this character, and he gets the increased damage. Sorry, I think he had that passive already. This one, so the increased damage against boosted health. Some of these passives are better than others, and unfortunately this is not the best one, and that again is another reason why I'm thinking that he has to be where he is. So after he casts his special skill, all allies deal 70% increased normal attack and special skill damage against targets with boosted health for 4 turns. It's a pretty decent passive, but there are some better ones coming out, especially with the season 5 costumes as well being introduced. We're seeing some pretty staunch passives, and that's not one of them. So in terms of what he does, he's as running at fast speed, and he deals 265% damage to the target nearby. So a decent amount of damage to 3 heroes, and the target nearby enemies get minus 40% accuracy for 4 turns. The cool thing is that the effect duration resets if the target's healed, and I think all of us understand how frustrating it is going up against heroes that give you a blind effect or negative accuracy. It just makes them that much more difficult to kill. And I don't think he's a bad hero at all. But what I do think is that there are better heroes in this list at the 15 soul tier. So he's not a bad pick, but I don't think you're going to fit him in on a defensive team. I think you're mostly going to use him as part of an attacking team. And I don't know. I'm not the hugest fan. Well, like Dr. Moreau's like an A-grade hero for me, but again, it's just so difficult to pick out of this list. Okay. Sorry, guys. So let's move on. Number 4 in this row, and again, I can't believe that I'm going to say this, but I think that my 4th place pick would have to be Dabria. Yeah, that's right, Dabria, I said it. So, I mean, she is an amazing hero, don't get me wrong. But the problem I find with Dabria that she's trying to do too much all at the same time. So she's trying to be a reviver, and she's trying to be a healer. She's trying to increase the defense, but the problem is that it takes too long for that special to get to where you really want it to be. So each fallen ally has a 40% chance to revive with 20% HP. That is a good revival chance. It is about 10% lower than your slow speed revivers like Mother North. But then you've got Lysanor, who's running at average speed, one of the newer heroes who does a massive percentage. I think it's 50% or 55% revive for her. You've got Costume for Heimdall, who's an excellent reviver at 55%. And obviously the Costume for Mother North is at 55% as well. And the thing about revive heroes is that they are kind of a last ditch solution. That is where you want to use them, and you want at least the 50% chance to make sure that you've got a 1 in 2 chance of bringing your allies back. Now, when the allies do come back, they do get 20% HP, and they do regenerate 894 HP over 4 turns. But the problem is it starts low and it increases every turn. I would prefer if it was the other way around, to be honest. It should start high and then get lower every turn. And the defense is the same, where all allies get 24% defense for 4 turns. And the defense increases by 10% each turn up to 54%. It'd be so much nicer if she gave a flat defense increase. I'm not going to say, again, like I say, she's not a bad hero at all. If you don't have a reviver or you rely heavily on revivers, then she can be usable. But if you're going to take her and use her as a healer, I think that you are going to be disappointed, unfortunately. So I think she is a good pick at 15 souls, but I wouldn't choose her if you don't have some of these other key heroes that are in this portal. And that is enough said about Dabria. So let's move on to our next hero in the 15 soul tier. The next hero, again, I can't believe I'm going to put him at number 3, but that is this little guy, Cinnamon. Cinnamon is an awesome excellent hero. He is running at average speed and he does hit all. He gives a pretty decent amount of frost damage over 4 turns. But the coolest thing about him is that elemental defense down against ice. It's negative 54% defense and it lasts for a whopping 4 turns, which is just awesome. And it means that he pairs up so well with other ice heroes, and he can just increase the damage that all of the other heroes are doing. The 250% damage is maybe a little bit low, but it's kind of countered by the fact that he is giving frost damage as well. And of course, he is putting on the elemental defense down. So he's an excellent hero. He's got the passives where he increases the health and mana of minions. And also they, what's the word I'm looking for now? The fiend one. So yeah, when a fiend summoned, he deals 85% damage to all enemies. So he does deal extra damage based on fiends, but again, it's kind of niche. I do like the defense up ether talent for Cinnamon as well, so that is awesome. And he's going to be a solid number 3 pick, I would say. If you have the other two already, then I would pick Cinnamon in a vacuum, of course. And then the next hero, so number 2 on our list at the 15 soul tier, is going to be Eonite. Without a shadow of doubt, this guy is just one of the most elusive heroes in the game. Up until now, I've hardly seen him anywhere on any defensive teams, but he's got such an awesome skill that you cannot forget about this guy. He's an excellent pick at 15 souls. He is of the fighter class, so he gets that chance to revive after a fatal hit, which is just awesome. And at each mana charge, he's doing a hit all damage to all enemies, and he's summoning a counter-attack shinobi minion for each ally. And this gives its owner the ability to counterattack with 60% of the damage received for as long as they have the minion. So he is doing like a Lube effect, but for the whole team, not just caster and nearby. He is hitting the whole team, and the damage gets up to a massive amount, 360% damage to all enemies at the final charge. And the health and HP, the attack and HP of the Shinobi minion increases with each charge as well. So there really isn't anything more that you could want from this guy. He is an amazing hero, attack up on the ether talent as well. And I would say he would be usable both on offense and defense. So he is an all-rounder, and just the most coolest looking hero. Like, he's overdone it on that bow on his belt. But he looks amazing. And yeah, he does get the family bonus as well, so he gets a chance to dodge both normal attacks and special skills, and a chance to counter attack with a percentage of the damage received. And that ninja family bonus is actually really good, especially considering that we are seeing the new ninjas released into these portals. If we see some more of them, like heroes like Mayo and Ni, and heroes like Oniwaka Maru. These beasts may well be coming into future soul exchanges. So Eonite may not be a bad pick if you're planning for the future. Now, the most insanely good hero on this row, and in fact a hero that I'm surprised not to see featured at 20 souls. It's a hero that majority of you guys have been saying will be your pick, and I don't blame you in any way, shape or form for a second, because she is just amazing. Absolutely incredible hero, Xiao Tu. So hands down, the easiest choice at 15 souls. If you do not have a Lunar New Year hero, I would highly recommend choosing Xiao Tu. She gets just for that passive, where all the attacks and abilities of minions owned by enemies are disabled. She is an insanely good hero against specific heroes and against specific team compositions. That means that she is going to be so good against any heroes that summon minions that give secondary effects, whether it's counterattack, whether it's buff stealing, whether it's obviously the mana reduction minions, which are probably some of the most annoying. The only kind of minions that she's not going to work against are the mega minions from the Goblins family. So just don't be disappointed if you take her up against a mega minion team. And she doesn't do anything to negate the minions' effect or their attack damage. But that is the only slight downside to this hero. Otherwise, she is absolutely incredible, and you will use her everywhere. Now, that being said, her special skill is not lackluster either. She deals 655% damage to the target, which is one of the highest amounts of damage to a single target of any hero in the entire game. Even though she's running at average speed, it's enough to pretty much kill a single enemy. And if that's not enough, the target and nearby enemies resist healing and receive 250 damage for every resisted healing for the following 4 turns. So it just makes it that much harder to come back from her hit. What I will say though is that this being part of her special looks like it makes her a good defensive hero. She is not the best defensive option. You really on defense want a hero that is going to hit more heroes. She can be used in a pinch, but that healing effect is she's more of an attacking hero is what I'm trying to say. You're not going to use her as much on defense as you do on offense. So she's a great attacking hero, great passive, disables minion effects. There is no heroes that does it better in the Lunar New Year hero portal. I would say I would probably want either her or Lao Hu. Like, it's such a close call between the two, but I would say she's probably better than this year's heroes in the minion portal, even though their stats are slightly higher. So an excellent hero and definitely a top pick at 15 souls. Now, moving on to the last final row with all of the god tier heroes in it. So I'm going to try and do this the same way I did for the previous row. But I don't think it's going to really make too much sense because these heroes are so roster dependent. So let's go ahead and I'll start with what I would say is my number 5 pick, which is going to be Athos. So personally, I think that Athos is not as good of a hero as Eonite. I think Eonite could have been easily featured in this 20 soul tier. So which is what makes it quite difficult to pick if you are looking for a nature hero. So the reason I say that purely is because Eonite is a hit all, and the counter attack effect can be used really well on both offense and defense. And with Athos, he is a single target hero. So he destroys all minions for the target. He deals 470% damage to the target, and the caster gets 20% mana for each destroyed minion. So that's pretty cool, but again, it's quite niche and it's quite minion specific. If you're looking for a minion specific hero, then Xiao 2 that we just looked at is the one to choose. But his being able to destroy all minions and deal 470% damage to the target, as well as the fact that his attack bypasses defensive buffs, makes him a really good, very fast speed sniper. But it doesn't make him that much else, unfortunately. I just think that he's kind of one-dimensional in comparison to some of the other heroes that we've looked at. And for that reason, that's the only reason I'll put him at number 5. But if you struggle to deal some serious damage and you want somebody that's running at very fast speed, yeah, he's an okay pick. I'm going to say okay in comparison to these heroes. Normally, I'd take him all day long. Okay, now the next hero from this row, these next few heroes, it's very difficult to pick between because they are going to be very roster dependent. So I'm going to say, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to say Narcissa would probably be my number 4 pick from the top row. She has just an insanely good special running at fast speed where she resets the duration of ailments for all enemies. She can work so well with heroes that have been recently coming out like the Scorpion Lady, Gigi, Jing, and like Daroga, who's just been featured in the opera heroes. Any heroes that do a significant amount of dot damage over time, she can reset or refresh the duration of those status ailments. Plus, she is a bard, so she gives a 5% mana generation bonus to team members that are solo heroes. So if they have no family or realm members in the team, and that can be very, very useful, especially with the advent of the legendary troops. because the legendary troops don't quite get as much mana bonus as you really need. So having that extra 5% does make all the difference. Her passive reduces the amount of mana increase by special skills for 50%. That also comes into play with heroes, relatively new heroes. I mean, heroes like Mayo and Ni, heroes like Nautica, who increase mana and things like that. She definitely is a good counter for a lot of heroes. And she deals a hit or damage to all enemies, 240%. It's a pretty decent hit. And then she gives negative attack for 3 turns. So she can be well used with heroes that do give, like Erlang Shen is a really good pairing with Narcissa, because he gives the attack down and then she removes it, and then the damage is dealt to all enemies. So yeah, the thing is, she's a really good hero if you need her. If you don't need her and you don't know how to use her and you don't feel like you rely a lot on ailments, then she's not necessarily a good hero for you. She's not going to stand up as well on her own as she does in synergy with other heroes. So that's my only warning about Narcissa. Now moving on to my my number 3 pick. So we're in the third spot now. So third spot from this top row is going to be, this is unfortunate for me to say, but just because some skills get dated and some skills get sort of reduced in effectiveness over time, and some skills stand the test of time really well. So with Anne, she is an example of a hero where she's just dealing a boatload of upfront damage, and that is awesome. But unfortunately, the upfront damage does not stand the test of time as well as some other skills. That being said, though, she does deserve some recognition, because number one, she's just the most amazing looking hero in the game, and her card is absolutely awesome. Number two, she is of the reviver fighter class, so she gets a chance to revive. She's of a very good family. The Corellia family give an increase to both mana generation and attack. But then to get the maximum benefit, you really need 2 or more heroes. And, you know, are you going to have 5 pirates on your team? I highly doubt it. I think maybe if you had her, Costume Finley, and Black Caesar, that would probably be about the 3 that I would really choose from the pirate heroes. But other than in that very unique situation, you're not really going to take advantage of her family bonus. The defense up ether talent is awesome. Pardon me, guys. So she definitely deserves some props for that. And her special skill, 550% damage to the target. Now, if the target had more than 50% health, she targets another enemy who had over 50% health before receiving damage. It's not as niche as other effects where they're not going to chain based on their effect all the time. With Anne's effect, at least on the first hit, it will chain to other heroes, but the damage is reduced on each consecutive hit. The last point on her special is really cool and unique to her in terms of that chain effect. So if hit enemies use their special skill in the next 4 turns, they get minus 34% attack, defense, and mana generation for 4 turns. And it is a very strong skill. So that means that you can use her again alongside some of the newer heroes like Pop Hit, Star Walker, Erlang Shen, any heroes that deal damage based on their effects being removed or replaced. She is a really good choice for that, and that makes her a very versatile hero. But that being said, she is the number 3, I would say, in this, because you can't specifically choose who else you're going to hit aside from the single target. But 550% at fast speed is a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. But then just to go out quickly, I'm sorry to do this, guys, and I hope it's not going to mess up my picks, but in the Easter summon, we've got Miss Ethel, and this just shows you, I mean, hers has been increased to 60%, and if the target had more than 40% health, then it changed the nearby. So it just shows you in terms of the power creep what we're having to deal with here. And unfortunately, that is just going to be more of the same for the future. Oh my goodness. Now I've got to select heroes again. Sorry, guys. I just want to make sure that I select these. At least I've done the pre-selection thing, so that's all right. So we're going to get on to the top two. Oh, wait, I need two more. One, two. There we go. Right. Okay, so the top two, I'm going to give them the top one. I'm not going to pick between these two because I think that they are both absolutely insanely good heroes. And saying that these are the top heroes at the 20 soul tier doesn't necessarily mean that for everybody they are going to be the top heroes to pick in this soul exchange. So let's start off with Bubbles. So Bubbles, she is just a master of the mindless attack, shifting mindless. This is the hero that shifting mindless was pretty much designed for from the beginning. And she does have she's got a pretty huge hit as well. 480% damage to the target is huge. But then that negative defense for 44 turns, for 44% for 4 turns, means that she can be usable if you need a defense down hero. But the shifting mindless attack for 4 turns is a heck of a long time, and it can spread to every enemy on the opposition team, just making sure that they're reducing their own mana back to 0. Now, I've had this question as well in terms of mindless attack, as to whether I think it's a good idea to use a hero that does the mindless attack or healing gift like Cupedo, or Bubbles versus heroes that silence as well. And there is a massive difference between mindless attack and silence. Just to be clear, silence basically means that they can still gain mana, and as soon as they come out of the effect, they're going to be able to fire off their special skill. Mindless attack or mindless heal, healing gift, whatever you want to call it, means that you're completely reducing their mana back to 0 as soon as that effect triggers. So you basically tile dump and get them to full mana, and then they're back to 0. And that means that they have to charge all over again, which means that that effect is so much more powerful than a silence effect. Just to be clear about that. And Bubbles is awesome. So I would say that if you're one of those people that prefers a fast speed hero, Bubbles is definitely going to be your cat. She's just insane. So she would be my number 2 pick. Well, I say number two and number 1, they're tied. But yeah, this guy is, I mean, he's a hero for me. And again, I think this soul exchange is going to be quite geared towards personal preference, because I don't think you can go wrong with a lot of these picks. But for me, since release, I would say this has been probably one of the heroes that I've wanted the most in the game. So I am going to go and pick him after this. I'm not going to leave you guys in suspense. I am going to pick Cupedo. I was torn between Cupedo and Xiao too, to be honest. But I have to go with my heart, man. And this guy, I mean, love conquers all, doesn't it? His heart's all over the place. So yeah, one thing I was forgetting about as well is his family bonus, where the solo heroes get a 20% increase for all healing received. That really does help. So if you've got a healer, for example, let's just take like I don't know, Kirill. So let's say he heals for 30%. If you're on a team with Cupedo, he's going to suddenly be healing for like 50% instead, which is a huge difference. And if you have, I was thinking Bold Tusk as well. Like, I mean, he's only 25%, but he does have a good attack up as well. So you pair him up with Cupedo, and you've suddenly got like a 45% increase or 45% healer. So yeah, it's a massive family bonus that these heroes have, and one that gets forgotten about quite a lot. The passive, the resistance against special skill blocking, makes him a beast in rush wars, because against any mindless attack, you know, he's giving the effect, but against anybody that comes up against him with a mindless attack, it's not going to land. It's not going to land on Cupedo. And that means that he's going to be able to do his thing. And you need him to do his thing, because his thing is amazing. So Love Conquers All is his special. It's 295% damage to target nearby. And then for 3 turns, they cast the Mindless Heal when at full mana. So Mindless Heal is going to recover 20% health for the character on the opposing side with the lowest remaining HP. I mean, it's just a simple, straightforward special. But if you don't understand how good this guy is, then don't pick him. If you don't understand how much you're going to use that special, he is running at average speed, and there are a lot of counters. So I'm going to warn you guys in advance, this is not a great defensive hero either. But then I said the same about Xiao too, and I'm sticking to that. Neither of them are great defensive heroes. In fact, you know, the only good defensive hero out of the sort of top 3 picks, which are Xiao 2, Cupedo, and Bubbles, I would say would be Bubbles. But I've got so many blue heroes in the queue that I can't justify taking another one. And even if I could, I don't think I would. So he is running at average speed. But just to bear in mind, you can increase his mana generation if you have, gosh, what's the 4-star hero from the bards that increases the mana? In fact, sorry guys, I'm just gonna, oh man, I've done it again. Anyways, I'm gonna just, sorry, that was a massive mistake. Anyway, so the 4-star hero from the bards, that refreshes the duration of status elements. If you do put him alongside Cupedo, you can get him down to 8 tiles, I think, which does make a little bit of a difference. But like, if you're like me and you don't really mind if they go off in 9 tiles, then yeah, Cupedo is going to be all right for that all day long. Absolutely fine with that. So in summary, in 3rd place out of all of these heroes, I would say Xiao 2. And 2nd place, probably Bubbles, and 1st place would be Cupedo. But that being said, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these hero picks in this Soul Exchange. So that is pretty much it in terms of this. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get Cupedo because I'm too excited to talk anymore. And I'm sure you guys are all fed up of listening to me talk by now. So we are going ahead with this little guy. Let's have him. Man, I can't believe how much they've increased the quality of the heroes in this Soul Exchange list. I really hope this does continue. And I hope that it continues into the Fated Summons as well. That is where we definitely need that. So I officially have a copy of Cupedo now. Wow. Just wow, honestly. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are still with us, I appreciate you guys. Please do let me know in the comments what your picks have been from this Soul Exchange. I'd be really interested to hear who you've gone with and also why you've chosen them. And please, I mean, when I make these videos about my picks, it is my personal pick. So, you know, if you've got like a different roster or you've got different priorities, that's absolutely fine. It's just to give you guys just a few little tidbits in terms of my insight, in terms of who I think are the top heroes, and nothing more. So that being said, please do drop us a like, and as well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we've got some amazing things coming up in the near future, so be looking forward to that for you guys as well. Good luck with the Soul Exchange and have an awesome Sunday. I wish you guys all the best, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.